Okay, good morning and welcome along to today's class, Staying Well While Staying Home, a collaboration between Siel, Bleu Ireland and the Irish Cancer Society. So my name is Shane. I've been bringing you these workouts for a couple of weeks now, well, a good block of time, a couple of months at this stage. So you're very welcome along to today's class. Things I would always suggest beforehand: I have a good, strong chair. We can perform the movements in a seated or a standing position. Equally, we have some weights. You can use tins, you can use bottles. You could also, for any movement where you feel weight isn't necessary, you can take the weight out of the movement. Finally, I would say just to work in your own level of comfort. Everyone is building up. Some of us may be very new to the exercise journey. Some of us maybe have a very good idea in terms of how hard we can work and what kind of movements work for us. So just work within your own comfort. Very simply, if a movement causes pain, it just doesn't feel right, change that exercise, maybe choosing one of the adaptations which I show. So I'm just going to set everything with my clock here. So we will begin this workout, just warming ourselves up to begin. So I'm going to lead this from a standing position, and I just want to get us loosened out, warmed up, and just to gradually bring that heart rate up a little bit. Also should say a bottle of water at the ready, always helpful. So I will start off with the shoulders. It's just typically somewhere I would like to start with, rolling the shoulders back, nice and slowly, just rolling your shoulders back. Just getting any movement at all. Typically an area that can be a little bit tight and a little bit stiff, and particularly before we start using any kind of weights. We'll just switch on all these different areas. Rolling the shoulders forward next. So just slowly rolling those shoulders forward. Okay, from there, I'm just going to bring my hands together. I'm just lightly turning my body to the right and then over to the left. And I'll think as much as I can getting movement through the upper body. My hips aren't really moving in this position. So the movement is through the upper body and my head lightly with the movement. Just a small rotation in each direction. And back in. Now I'm just going to bring hands up to about chest height. And what I want to do is just to start pushing straight out from my chest. So just kind of switching on shoulders, switching on chest now, just switching all these different parts of our body. And with that rotation, stretching out the back a little bit as well. Just pushing forward out from chest. And from there, what I want to do next is just take a small step forward and raise my right arm, and then just switch over to the left arm. So just becoming a little bit more dynamic with the movement now. Raising the arm, just switching on the shoulder. And as we have a front raise in the circuit today, I'm just kind of checking in with myself. How does this feel if I was to load this maybe with weight, as we will do shortly? Does this pattern of movement feel okay? And we just keep lightly stepping forward. So we'll just keep our body moving here. Now from there, I'm just going to bring it back in. I just want to take a small step to the right and a small step to the left. Again, this will kind of tie in with one of our movements. We're going to take a lateral walk today within our circuit. So just get a little feel for side to side here. Stepping to the right, stepping to the left. And should you wish, you can use that chair just to kind of guide you along. You could hold it out in front if you felt it was needed. Just light steps in each direction. And back in. Now, holding on to that chair might be useful here. Might not be necessary. But I want to focus on getting a nice big lift here. So bringing one knee up at a time. My upper body stays nice and straight, and we're just getting a nice big lift through each side. So I'm less focused on the speed of this movement and thinking more about getting a nice big lift of that knee through each side. Okay, I'm just going to turn my body to face the chair. I'm just going to start lightly tapping one foot at a time back, stretching the leg back. Just stretching that leg back, lightly tapping toes into the floor. So really, we're just keeping the body moving and active here. We're warming it up and just gradually bringing that heart rate up as well, preparing for more challenging exercises ahead. From this position, I'll still just continue to lightly hold on to my chair. I'll just begin curling one leg at a time back. So just lightly curling one leg at a time. Maybe feeling the back of the leg a little bit here. Just nice and light with the action, curling back. I'm just going to turn back to the front here again. I can just continue to lightly hold that chair, and I will just lightly extend one leg at a time. So right then left, just lightly extend each leg forward. Okay, and as we pointed our toes back to the floor, now I want to lightly tap my heels into the floor. So now the toes are lifting up towards the ceiling, and I'm just lightly tapping the heel in front through each side. Just lightly tapping each heel. And then one more time, I want to return back to those nice big lifts of each knee. So my right knee and then my left knee, just getting a nice big lift through each side. Just really switching on, connecting with the hips, which will be very active throughout this session. So that's why we'll pay a little bit extra attention to this movement here. And ready. Okay, so that is our warm-up complete. Like a continuation of our warm-up, we will now move into our aerobic block of work. Purpose here is we're moving at a nice brisk pace. All of the movements can be performed standing or seated. I will lead everything in standing and really just to mimic the movements in a seated position. Nothing really changes in the execution, just to follow the same pattern of movement, but from that seated position. For those of us standing, what I want to do is have my chair to the left side of me, okay? So have your chair to the left, and we might switch it a couple of times during this circuit. Just want to keep you active, keep you moving. This is where we're working the heart, working the lungs, just keeping the body active and moving. And as ever, I try and make it hopefully interesting with some element of balance and coordination within the aerobic circuit here. So first block of work, let's begin. How it will look is that I want to lift my right knee and raise my right arm. So working through the right side. So how that looks, right knee up, right arm out. My chair is here, should I need. So that chair can help guide me along if I want. If you feel comfortable, maybe you don't need to hold on to the chair, and that's fine. So your choice is there. From your seated position, we mimic the same movement. Lifting the right knee, raising the right arm. I think this is our first round of the 3 movements. Just start kind of cautiously, get a feel for every movement. And that's, do I need to hold the chair or am I comfortable? So just get a feel for the movement. And then we'll start to work at a nice moderate pace. Not so hard that I can't sustain it, but I don't want to just be kind of ambling through either. A little bit of intensity that we feel we're active and working. Okay, I'm going to swap. I just want to bring the chair to the opposite side, or you can simply turn the body. So now chair is to my right, So I lift my left knee and raise the left arm. Again, just start cautiously, maybe aware each side will be different. One side might feel a little bit stronger in terms of balance compared to the other. Again, I have a kind of feel for the movement. I feel strong, I feel balanced. If I don't, I will hold on to that chair or from my seated position. Again, just keep it moving now at a nice moderate pace where, yes, I feel a good challenge, where I'm active, maybe a little bit of a pant as I talk, a good indication I'm working hard here. Lifting my arm higher than shoulder height out to my side and bringing that knee up in front. Last couple of seconds. Okay, from this position, third movement is very straightforward. Just want you to march with a little bit of intensity, bringing the arms into the movement. So just lightly swing the arms forward and back. So third movement, and then we will repeat those same three movements, working through the right, through the left, and into your march. 2 more rounds. So they are your movements. Anything here that maybe needs to be changed, make that change in the second round. If you need to slow any of the movements like this march down a touch, that's okay. Or if it all felt very easy and light, we might just bring it up a little bit and go with a little bit more intensity on the next round. So just finish out marching here. And rest. Okay, so simply just want to bring that chair back. There's no real pauses, just a couple of seconds to set up. So let's go again. Second round. Right knee, right arm. And let's begin. Again, just start comfy on the first couple of lifts. Again, make that change. Hold the chair should you need. So there's that element as well. I'm staying strong and balanced through that left leg, which is flat to the floor. Just that coordination, my right arm to the side, my right knee in front. Staying strong and balanced. If in any way I feel kind of wobbly and unbalanced here, I've just got to hold on to that chair. Again, a nice moderate pace where I feel I'm active, I'm working. I can still talk, I'm not completely breathless, but I'm definitely feeling a good challenge here. And switch. So again, want to bring that chair across. Always having that chair, even if you feel quite balanced during the movement, just have it there should you need. Left arm, left knee. Let's begin. Again, just start cautiously on the first couple of repetitions, and then we'll continue nice moderate intensity. At any point, you can kind of slow the movement down if you need. We're going with a little bit more intensity if it feels quite easy. Simple changes, aside from holding the chair or the seated position. If you need to maybe just rest the arm, for example, or just rest the leg briefly, it's okay to make these little changes. Make these movements work best for you. You can always make those little changes. Shoulder feels a bit tired, rest it. Leg feels a little bit tired, maybe just work through the arm. Make those little switches. Okay, third final movement again, march. Not really thinking too much on this one, just march straight forward. Let the arms lightly swing with the movement. But again, I am trying to go at a nice brisk pace here, as opposed to maybe just ambling. I'm going with a little bit of intensity and purpose as I move those arms as well. So again, the context, the purpose, all these movements, we're very active, we're moving, like being on a brisk walk, where we feel a challenge, but hopefully interesting movements as well, where we're working a little bit, balance, coordination as well. Breathing throughout, sip water any point you need. Okay, so we will set up one final round. So again, I'm just going to bring the chair back over to my left. Always just have it there should I need it for balance. Right knee, right arm. Let's begin. 1/3 and final round of each movement. Again, just maybe what felt easy in the first round maybe now feels very tough. So aware if it is getting tougher, we can slow it down, make a change like holding the chair. Right arm, right knee. And arm no higher than shoulder level. And the knee just to a comfortable height. On this one as well, I'll always just think of that foot nice and soft. Just avoid stamping down with the leg as much as we can, keeping the movement light and soft. And switch. So again, I'm going to bring the chair across one final time, just to have it by my right. And I'm going to move my left arm and left knee. So let's begin. Left arm and left knee. Again, make those changes, slow it down a touch if you need, hold your chair if you need, seated position absolutely fine. Or maybe just resting one limb from the movement, whether that's taking the arm out or just resting the leg briefly. Last couple of seconds. Okay, third, final movement of our final round, march. Again, don't want to really think we're very intense with the first two, just straight in, march, and just bring the arms lightly into the movement. Again, I'm trying to move with a little bit of purpose on this one, as opposed to kind of just ambling and walking really lightly. I'm moving with a little bit of intensity, and that's kind of just ambling and walking really lightly. I'm moving with a little bit of intensity, and that's why I have my arms into this movement as well. I always say, think on this one, if you were walking down the street, maybe you wouldn't even recognize someone if they called your name, because you're just moving with a little bit of purpose and intensity, kind of in your own bubble on this one as you're marching. Last couple of seconds. And rest, okay? Brilliant work. So that is our aerobic block of work done. I want to maybe just rest lightly against the chair, take a seat, take a sip of water, just purely resting, relaxation. Catch your breath, take a little bit of a breather. Okay, so as we take a rest, I will just explain. We're going to move into our next block of work, which is our main strength circuit. So this is where we will perform a circuit in a similar fashion. Now for 5 movements, working some of the lower limbs, our legs, and some upper body movements, working our shoulders, arms, and using weight. But any movement that causes kind of pain or doesn't feel right, just to take weight out of the movement, or maybe to perform the seated adaptation. So there is a choice here, should any movement cause any issue. I'm just going to set my timer here, and we will begin now shortly. Okay, so first movement will be a lateral walk. I'm just going to show you the seated adaptation first. So if you don't like the movements that I'm going to lead with, and what you can do instead of lateral walk, I'm just going to adjust my camera touch, excuse me for a moment, just so you can see the foot position a little bit better here. So if in a seated position, what I want you to do is just bring the hands together, open your right leg to the side, open your left leg to the side. And just to continue on like that, opening one leg at a time, keeping the upper body straight and eliminated from the movements. For those of us in a standing position, I'm going to bring my chair out of the way. What I want you to do is take up a half squat position. How that looks is soft knees, feet at least hip width apart, and I want you to just lightly squat down, half squat. We will take 1 and then 2 steps to the right, and then 1 and 2 to the left. You'll notice I keep those feet, try and keep them apart so that I don't want to go really narrow like this where I could feel quite unbalanced. So I lead, you'll see here, with my right leg, and then I lead with my left leg, keeping a little bit of distance and separation between the feet. And by half squat, think of setting the position up through your hips. My knees are soft, and I'll just lightly squat down. So my back is straight, as opposed to just rounding here. Move back from the hips here, okay? Seated option is there if you don't like the look of that movement, or if it doesn't feel right as you perform it, take up that seated option. We're going to work through our hips and our glutes as well on that one. So let's begin. Okay, so we'll start the movement now. Let's take up our position, whether standing or seated. Half squat. So you might like to put your hands on your hips if in standing, and just lightly squat down. Half position, not too deep, just lightly down. Knees are soft. 3, 2, 1. 1 and 2 steps to the right. 1, 2 to the left. If at any point you need, reset the position and then lightly back down. And you can do that after every 2 steps, should you need. Again, no hurry with the movement. Just keeping a nice straight back, and I'm maintaining this half squat position. Again, a couple of times you might feel it's getting very tiring. Reset, come out of the position and back down. Do that as many times as required. Keeping a little bit of width so that I never feel unbalanced. I never want those feet to come really, really narrow here. I'm always keeping a little bit of width between the two. Keeping my back straight, that at no point am I rounding. So my hips are just, I'm sitting back into the movements. And resetting as many times as required, like so. And once more. And back. Excellent. So that is your first movement. Remember, we're just exploring every movement. So maybe you tried that out and it just didn't feel great. Well, then we'll know for the second round we can make that change from the start and take the seated choice. Or maybe the seated one wasn't sufficient challenge and the next time you want to try the standing variation. So we can make those changes. Next one. Execution, standing, seated, the same instruction. I want you to straighten your arms with your hands down, lower down. We'll get a little pause, and then we slowly lower the weight. I like to exhale as I raise those weights up. Inhale, refuel as I lower the weight down. Simple changes we can make, one arm at a time if you find this one difficult. That way should bring a little bit more power and control into the movement. Just ensure that you have control of the weight and that we lift, we can pause, and we can slowly lower that weight back down. At no point are we swinging the weight. I know for some people the shoulder can be an issue, maybe even a little bit of tightness around the chest or the pec here. Don't force the weight to shoulder height, just that we're never going beyond that position. But if you feel you stop just a little bit lower than shoulder, that's no problem. If to go any further felt like it would cause pain. So always feeling strong with the movement. Back down. I want you to drop one weight. And I want to take up a seated position next. So this will be a combination, a sit to stand with upright row. So what I want you to do, Whether performing standing or seated, I want you to open the feet a little bit, maybe just a little bit wider than hip width, holding the weight. If performing seated, I want you just to perform this movement here, upright row, of bringing the weight to about chest height. If comfortable, performing the standing variation, what I want you to do is stand up tall from your chair and lift the weight to chest height, and then back down. So choice here is your sit to stand with this upright row, or simply performing that upright row from a seated position. In terms of bringing the weight up, I'll wait till I'm standing and then I'll set the position. I want to bring the weight no higher than chest height, and my elbows are roughly in line with that kind of range as well. So what I don't want to do is bring that weight up too high that I'm just hitting off under the chin. I'm just going to stop right at that chest line. Very dynamic movement. We're just keeping our backs straight as we stand up. We're pressing our heels into the floor as we stand up. If in seated, you're just working through that upright row position. Simple changes. If you want, you could take the weight away and just perform a sit stand without this addition of the weight, and that's no problem. More. And back down. Okay. Next movement, I want you to take your second weight back and place your chair just directly in front of you. And the idea here will be lightly tapping the chair with each foot. If in a seated position, sitting tall and lifting one knee up at a time, not rounding that back. But let's begin. Right foot, left foot. I begin cautious, nice and light, tapping the chair, lifting my knee up. If in any way I feel unbalanced, uncomfortable, I want you to drop the weight, and we can perform it like that, or simply take up your seated position. But I feel strong, I feel balanced as I perform the movement, so I'll continue on. Bearing weight through each side, lightly tapping the chair. But I feel strong and balanced as I perform this movement. Keeping your upper body strong, whether standing or seated, avoiding bending that upper body. So keeping the body straight as you lift each knee. Working, connecting with each hip, and strong and balanced as we perform it. And rest. Final movement, going to hold on to your two weights. We're going to work the back of the arms, and again we will have our standing and seated option, which I will demonstrate. I'm just going to pause the clock so I'm not in any rush to explain this. Seated variation first of all. So if you're performing this movement seated, I want you to sit forward in your chair, and I want you to lean your upper body forward. Nice straight upper body, leaning forward, elbows up, and you're going to lightly push those weights back and then return in. So press the weights back and then return in. Movement is through the elbow. My upper arm is in a fixed position, and I press the weights back from my elbow, keeping my back straight. In standing, which I will now lead with, what I want to do is soften my knees and then just slowly bring the hips back. My upper body is straight, elbows up, and I push the weight back in the same way. So let's begin with our standing or seated variation. If in standing, keep your knees soft, push the hips back and until your upper body is gently tilting forward. So my back is straight. It is not bending at all here. I push the weights back from my elbows and then return back in. So my body must stay straight in that our back is never rounding. And if it is and it just doesn't feel right, take up your seated position. pushing the weights back from the elbows. My upper arm is roughly in a fixed position, and the movement is from the elbow through the lower arm, just pressing the weights back. Knees stay soft, hips pushed back, upper body is straight. Pushing the weights back through the elbows. Trying to feel the back of my upper arms as I push those weights back. Reset, drop the weight. So that is your first round finished. And we will go back to the start shortly. So I always say, check in with yourself. How did that feel? Was there any movement there you just really didn't like, that just didn't feel good, maybe caused a little pain, a bit of irritation? Simply change the exercise. Maybe take up a seated position. Even just simply take weight away from the movement. So don't force yourself if it doesn't feel good. How hard should you be working? How should this feel? Well, we want to feel a challenge. You feel you're active, you're working. We don't want to ever get to a point where we're struggling to talk. So if you couldn't hold a full sentence, if you are kind of putting the hand up, say, no, I couldn't talk right now, that's maybe a sign you're just working too hard if you're completely breathless. Well, yes, we might expect a light sweat, a little bit out of puff as you talk, and just that you feel connection, like your arms, the legs, maybe that they feel a little bit tired, that they're working, but not painful. So let's go again, second round, make any changes that you need. So we're going to take our side walking, our lateral walk. Again, seated variation, open one leg and then the other, keeping the upper body straight. I'm going to lead with standing variation, starting now. So again, half squat position, knees soft, hands on hips, and just half squat position. So lightly squat down, moving the hips back. Step to the right, and then step to the left. Leading with whatever direction you are moving towards, lead with that leg. So I'm leading with my left leg as I go left, leading with my right leg as I go right. And then the opposite leg just follows. So you can see I'm keeping a little bit of distance between my feet. So I'm in a strong balanced position. If you feel maybe the back is starting to bend, reset, squat down again, half squat, no further. We don't want to go too far into this squat position. Just keep it comfortable where you're in control. My back is straight. My hips are just lightly pushed back. And reset as many times as required. Feel areas like our hips, glutes, thighs, all active through this movement. Strong core, upper body straight. Reset, okay? Second movement, front raise. We take up our two weights. Standing seated, your execution of the movement will be the same here. So, a couple of seconds, catch your breath. Arms straight, palms of the hands down. And in 3, 2, 1, we begin. Lift in front, pause, slowly lower down. Keeping those arms straight. No higher than about shoulder level. Again, maybe the second time it is a little bit harder, but I always think if we can at least just control the weight back down, that there's no swinging of the weight. If I show a couple from the side, I want to make sure that upper body is strong, that at no point am I arching to lift the weight. So my shoulders are doing the work here. And if we're losing power, drop it down to one arm at a time. I'm breathing out as I raise the weights. Inhaling in as I lower. and down. Okay, dropping the weight to position. Let's open up those feet a little bit wider than hip width apart, just so you have a comfortable space for that weight. Again, if you want to just perform the seated version, lifting the weight to chest height, bringing the elbows up. Otherwise, we'll perform our sit to stand as well. I stand up nice and tall, bring the weight to chest height, lower back down, and sitting back to chair. And I'll just always reset the position, returning to seated. Again, depends on how comfortable you are. Maybe we just lightly tap the chair and straight back up. That's okay. Or maybe we need just a second or two to reset. Again, I'm going to think of that weight going no higher than about chest height and just think in the same rough range with your elbows. So we don't need anything to go really high here, just to about chest height. And we just separate, break it down, stand, set the position, and then raise. So we'll not try and rush it all together really quick. Stand, raise, lower back down. Moving through those hips, keeping your upper body straight. So making sure that back is not rounding. You're pressing up through your heels, keeping the upper body straight. And rest. Next movements. Place your chair in front. Take hold of your two weights. This will be my light tapping of the chair, my knee lift or hip flex. So seated variation, sit comfortably in your chair, lift and lift. Okay. So let's begin. 3, 2, 1. Start slow. Just make sure you feel comfortable, lightly tapping the chair. After a couple of taps, you should have a kind of feel, am I strong and balanced? Or if I feel uncomfortable, it just doesn't feel strong, let's drop the weights. Or maybe take up our seated variation. Upper body should stay strong. I'm not looking to put any weight onto that chair, or just very lightly tap. Simple things. Maybe the height is a little bit high and you just want to lift one at a time without the need to tap the chair. I just like sometimes to have that physical object to aim for. So a nice height I can aim to achieve every time. Strong and balanced through the standing leg and a strong lift through the moving leg. Really connecting with our hip and keeping that upper body strong. Last couple of seconds. And rest. Okay, we're going to work the back of the arm, tricep again. I will begin again. We're going to work the back of the arm, tricep again. I will begin again, showing the seated variation. So I'm going to pause the clock. I don't want to rush my explanation here. So if you did not like the standing version, just didn't feel right, maybe the back was bending, we're going to sit into the chair, sit forward. Upper body is straight. And I want you to just lean forward to a comfortable position. So leaning forward, elbows up, push the weights back, and then return in. Push the weights back, return in. So your movement is through the elbows, keeping your upper body straight. And that should be easier in a seated position if you found it hard in standing. All right, if we are comfortable, I will lead with the standing position. First thing, soft knees, not tight and rigid. So soften the stance of your knees. Gently push those hips back so that draws my upper body into a leaning position, but nice and straight. Elbows up. Push the weights back. Turn back in. Breathe out as I press the weights back. And breathing in as I return. My back is straight, it's not bending. My knees are soft and my hips have pushed back. Movement is through my elbows, pushing back. My upper arms are fixed, they will not move, but my lower arm will move as it drives back and then returns in, but all from the elbow. As I push the weights back, I look to get a squeeze, a connection through the back of my upper arms. So that's the tricep, the back of the upper arms. Squeezing as we press the weights back. It shouldn't require much weight here. If you find this is really difficult, we may even just perform this action without the use of weight. And we should still be able to get a nice connection with the back of our arms. And rest. Okay, that is 2 rounds of your circuit finished. Take a breather, a little rest. And we'll take 1/3 final round. So catch your breaths, take a drink of water. What I would always say, we're all building up at a different level. If you feel really you've pushed hard at 2 and that's sufficient for you today, that is no problem. You could just move into a cool down. That's no problem at all. If we feel okay, we'll move into a 3rd final round. Don't be afraid to make changes. Maybe what felt easy at the start now is going to be a little bit tougher. So maybe your seated position instead of standing, simply taking weight away from the movement. And if you just feel a little bit breathless, just sit down, catch your breaths, don't force yourself through just because we're on the last round. Okay, so I'm going to move back to the start. So let's set up. Again, your seated variation of our lateral walk will again be just to bring hands together, open the right leg, open the left leg. So just move your standing lateral walk. We want to take up our half squat position. So knees soft, just lightly squat down. So that's how I should look like. Straight back, hips back, soft knees. So let's begin. Back to the start there, sorry. So half squat. Lightly squat down, half the way, upper body is straight. 2 steps to the right, 2 steps to the left. And I should probably hands width by hips might be the most comfortable here. Sometimes you might find it more comfortable to bring hands together. Whatever just feels natural to you. Keeping a little bit of distance between my feet, never going too narrow. So I don't want my feet at any point kind of touching off each other. As many times as I like, reset the position. So if you've performed a couple and you feel maybe your back is starting to arch or starting to bend, you're just going to reset the position, stand up tall, and half squat down again. Many times as required. Active, hips active, glutes active here as well. Core is strong, upper body is strong. No need to hurry on this one. Just 2 controlled steps in each direction. Reset. Front raise. We'll take our 2 weights. Remember, in standing seated, the instruction will be the same for this movement. We have a couple of seconds on the clock, so we'll use up our rest. Okay, so arms are straight, my hands are down, and in 3, 2, 1, we begin the movement. Lift the weight in front, slowly lower back down. Now again, at the start, I talked about pause, slowly lower the weight down. Maybe on this 3rd round, that becomes a little bit more difficult to kind of keep that same control. But if we can just think of not rushing the weight down, that we can consciously slow that weight down, we're doing okay. I know it's hard to maybe get a little pause now. We'll just work with as much control as we can. And if it's just becoming a little bit uncomfortable, let's drop to 1 arm at a time. Breathing out as I raise those weights. And breathing in as I lower the weights. Last couple of seconds. And rest down. Okay, drop one weight and just hold on to the one. Take up your seated position. So again, just sit comfortably into that chair. Open the feet a little bit wider than hip width, just so you have sufficient weight. If you want to leave the sit to stand out, you can focus just on bringing that weight up to chest height, bringing the elbows to the same height as you raise. If comfortable, we will begin with our standing variation. So standing up tall, bring the weight up chest height, lower back down, sitting into your chair. Again, I'm going to think of pressing my heels into the floor as I stand. I set my position nice and straight, and then I raise the weight up. As I raise the weight up, no higher than about chest height, bringing the elbows up with the movement. So working through my legs, and then working with my shoulders as well with my upright row. Again, take a second or two as we sit if we need, just kind of reset the movement. Or just lightly tapping down and straight back up if we feel comfortable. But never needing to rush a movement like this. One more time. And back down. Okay, so set up for the next one. Your chair is in front. You're going to take hold of your two weights. Again, your seated option is here, or simply to perform the movement without any weight. Let's begin. I lightly tap the chair with right foot, lightly tap with left foot. Starting slow, just making sure this feels balanced, I feel strong. And if I do, I will then continue on. Nice moderate pace, lifting each knee one at a time, keeping that upper body straight and bearing weight through each side. But simple changes, drop the weight from the movements. Maybe the lift is difficult, take a step back and just lift to a more appropriate height without needing to tap the chair. Your seated option is there, standing or seated, keeping that upper body straight, that we're not bending into the movements. Final movement, tricep or back of the arms. And again, this is one I like to show, kind of continually just repeat the two options. It can be a difficult movement and there's no pressure if you do find this one a bit tricky. So again, your seated option is to sit forward in your chair, nice and tall, lean that upper body forward, bring the elbows back, push the weights back from your elbows. So pushing those weights back from the elbows, keeping the upper body straight. Now I will lead with my standing setup. So I'm going to push this away. So my setup, if in standing, first thing I will do is soften my knees. So nice soft knees. And there, my hips will push back, drawing my upper body into a leaning position, but nice and straight, not bending. Elbows up, push the weights back. Movement is from the elbows. So my upper arm is fixed in position. My elbows allow for the movement of the lower arm to push back. The more I can kind of press back and get a nice squeeze and connection with the back of my upper arms. Keep the knees soft, hips pushed back, upper body is straight. So from a mechanical point, if we can keep a straight back, we're in a good position here. With soft knees, hips pushed back. pushing the weight back from my elbows, squeezing as I press back, connecting with the back of my arms. Breathing out as I press it back, breathing in as I return. We can let those weights return to the front of our body. Last couple of reps. And rest. So drop the weights down, catch your breath. We're going to cool down, but there's no rush. Take a couple of seconds, just catch your breath, take a sip of water as you need. Okay, so a lot of work there. That was our weighted circuit. We worked the likes of our glutes, our hips, our thighs. We worked the back of our arms. We worked our shoulders. So a lot of really good strength work, strengthening big limbs within our body. And then we had our aerobic circuit. So a lot of good work performed there. So all that's left now, you can hear as I talk a little bit of a pant. So I'm not ready to kind of finish now. And I don't want to abruptly stop. I want to take a couple of light movements now just to relax my body down, bring that heart rate slowly down, and then I'll be talking without that kind of fast pant. So I just want to return to a relaxing state. So a couple of light movements. And we will begin first just with a nice chest stretch. Arms by side, palms of the hands facing forward, and just lightly pull back. Open out that chest. A couple of seconds. And relax down. Again, arms by side, palms of the hands forward, pull back, just opening out that chest. I'll perform this one once more. Again, arms by side, palms forward, just lightly pull back, open out that chest. As I hold this position, as ever, just any feedback, do feel free to let us know if that was hard, easy, or just about right. If you feel you need more kind of adaptations with any of the movements, that's fine, just to let me know. But hopefully we got a good challenge and a good workout from that session. Okay, just going to stretch out the back of my body next. We'll go with a rotation first. I'm going to place one hand lightly on top of the other and rotate my body to the right. My hips stay in a fixed position as I rotate my body to the right. And then I'll just lightly rotate my body to the left. My head is with the movement. And I'll just continue a couple of times in each direction. I'm going to take it one more time in each direction. And back down. Okay. Again, just for the back, if I show this one, I want to place the palms of my hands facing forward and I interlace the fingers. I push straight out from my chest. So this is how the position will look. My arms are straight in front. I'm just stretching out the back of my upper body. Hold for a couple of seconds. Return back in. Again, press straight in front, lengthening those arms. Return back in. Just going to go a couple of times. Go twice more. And already now as I talk, I can feel just returning back to a relaxed state. And back down. Perfect. Okay. Just moving into the lower limbs next. Okay, very welcome, Maria. Yeah, so great to get that feedback. Do always appreciate. So, for example, you might notice as we move into the next one, I'll just explain. I'll just lightly tap the toes behind, stretch the leg back. So, for example, if you maybe took a walk before this, you might find that a little bit harder today, but I know it's tricky, like the weather is just so uncertain, so I can understand why maybe you want to get out for that walk first. And as I always say, we can break up these movements. So, for example, maybe that aerobic block of work, which is similar to a brisk walk in terms of the intensity. Maybe you could leave that part out if you took a walk, for example, and felt a little bit tired, and maybe to just perform the strength work, for example. Or if you've done a lot of kind of heavy work, maybe out in the garden, we'll say one day, maybe you just want to leave out the strength work the next day and just to do the aerobic work. So we can always make these little changes, but really good work. I know you're always working hard there, Marie, so well done. Let's just lightly tapping back. And what I want to do next is just lightly curl one leg, hold for 1, 2, and then the opposite side. And this cool down is really essential as well. If we feel we were working quite hard in that session and we found it tough, we like to avoid an abrupt sudden stop. So we don't want to just suddenly stop. We might feel a little bit lightheaded if we were to do that. It's important to take a couple of minutes just to relax the body down. Compared to when I finished and I was a little bit out of puff as I talked, now I'm back to normal, almost feeling fully relaxed at this point. Okay. Next movement, just lightly tap the heel, toes pointed up, and then swap to the opposite side. Just continue on nice and light. Tap the heel down, pointing the toes up. Okay, and then I'll just lift my right knee, 1, 2, and lift the left knee, 1, 2, and I'm consciously holding on to the chair at this point. I want everything to be a little bit more relaxed. I don't want to put my body under too much strain at this point. Just slowly relaxing all the movements down. And we'll go once more. And on the left. Okay, and just to finish off, what we'll do is just take up our seated position. Okay, and just to relax down, just going to rest my hands on my legs. I'm just going to take a couple of inhale through the nose, slowly out the mouth, just to ensure we feel fully relaxed. So in through the nose, and a nice slow and long exhale. So longer on that exhale, kind of short inhale, and a nice. Okay, that concludes our session today. So thanks so much for tuning in. Any questions, any issues at all, just let me know. Just in terms of the classes going forward, just keep an eye on our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, we're there, and here on YouTube. Just keep an eye out if anything were to change in terms of the class, maybe moving to a Zoom setup or anything at all. But hopefully we'll be back in the same guise next Wednesday. As I say, just to keep an eye on our social media, and we'll update you in terms of where the class is. But enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you again. Brilliant work. And again, this is a collaboration between ourselves, Siel Bleu Ireland, and the Irish Cancer Society. So enjoy your week. Well done, everyone.